Coming up on FTC Recap, we have the long-awaited team, 8393, the giant Diencephalic BrainSTEM Robotics team from Pennsylvania, on for an AMA-style interview, as well as some first headlines and fun trivia and Kahoot. All of this and more on FTC Recap tonight.
Giving you a voice.
Making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun.
We would like to thank our friends at Stryker for supporting fun so we can continue to make content for you. Stryker is a leading medical device company and is looking for those in FIRST to join their team as interns or for a great career. Come join a company that will actively support you being in FIRST at careers.stryker.com. If you're on an FRC or FTC team and you're currently meeting safely in person and have a functional robot, we'd love to have you on our Behind the Bots or Behind the Bumper segments. Go ahead and reach out to us on any of our social channels, on Discord, or send us an email at admin@firstupdatesnow.com, and let's get your team scheduled to be on First Updates Now.
Welcome to FTC Recap, where you get the breakdown and discussion on what is going on in the FTC community. From First Updates Now, I'm Ashray. Joining me is Abbas.
And joining us on the show today are Felipe and Owen from 8393, the giant Diencephalic BrainSTEM Robotics team. They have consistently been ranked in the top in the world throughout the season and were first on our last top 25. If you have questions for them, make sure to tag at First Updates Now in the chat. And Felipe, Owen, do you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick? What's your role in the team? How long have you been doing FTC?
Sure. So I'm Felipe. I work in design and I dabble in a little bit of programming. And I have been doing FTC. This is my 4th year now, but I've been doing FIRST for about 8.
Hi, I'm Owen. I'm the team's lead programmer and driver coach. This is also my 4th year in First Tech Challenge, but I have been in FIRST for 7 years.
Awesome. So should we get on to the headlines, Asher?
Let's do it. So first off, we have the first celebration that's on June 24th. So first we'll be hosting a virtual celebration featuring some special guests on Thursday, June 24th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on First TV's Twitch. During this broadcast, First will announce the 2021 Dean's List winners, the 2021 Volunteer of the Year, as well as some of the top teams from Robot Performance this past year. They'll also be sharing the Inspire, Compass, and Promote Award winners. How hyped are you guys for this?
Yeah, I hope it's really going to be a great event. From what it seems, I think they're going to be showing Inspire, Compass, and Promote winners from, or at least Inspire winners from all of the states and regions. But I think Promote and Compass, they have like a separate submission form. So they're probably just going to be choosing 1 or 2 from there and then releasing those. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Definitely.
And let's get on to the next headline. So just last night, it finally happened. Sushi Squad, a team from Washington that did very well in Skystone, released their 164 max point autonomous. After 7 months, a team finally scored every single point possible in the autonomous period. Just incredible. I know many other teams got close, but Sushi Squad was the first as far as I believe. And after watching their auto, I noticed some pretty cool things. First, it seems like they just outtake the force stack in the beginning to spill it all in front of the robot, so they don't need like an extra drop-down blocker or anything like that. And then it looks like they're not detecting the power shots or like the bounce backs of the power shots using vision, but just going to like preset locations or like a preset path. But I mean, all well for them. And Ashrey, Owen, Felipe, any thoughts? How many?
I think one of the most difficult parts about this is the bounce back, because between like a home environment and an in-person environment, it's definitely very, very different. I know we experienced this a lot in the Chesapeake region, but being at home and being remote, I think doing that bounce back tuning is definitely a lot easier. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they can improve it with adding some vision for their bounce back rings.
Yeah, I think this is really, really, really cool. Personally, we're definitely going to be referencing this video for when we go to perfect our bounce back. And I'm really glad a team has done it just to prove it's possible. However, I'm interested in your take on this. What do you think? Do you think there's going to be bounce back at MTI, guys, for in-person competitions? Because, as we've all seen, you really do need a really high level of tuning to make sure that this works.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think the way to do bounce backs or power shots in general at MTI will definitely be with vision, because I think that's pretty much the only way you can guarantee across different fields that it'll be the same, because odometry does reduce inconsistencies in field, but not in field setup, right? So I think the only way to do that is through vision or some other sensor, just not something that works the same way every single time.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to our next headline, first founder Dean Kamen was recently inducted into the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. Dean has over 440 patents under his name, and has invented some really cool things like the Segway and the auto syringe. He's also the president of DECA Research and is a part-time Florida resident. That's some cool facts that I bet you didn't know about our favorite Dean. Huge congrats to Mr. Kamen, and a big thank you to him for doing such amazing work in technology. Do you guys know any cool facts about Mr. Kamen?
Well, we actually got to meet Mr. Kamen at, I think it was 2017 Worlds. It would have been Velocity Vortex for FTC, but we were there for first Lego League Animal Allies. And we ran into him in our hotel, and it was just really cool to meet him. We took a couple pictures.
For sure.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. And so let's go on to our next headline. So about 10 or so days ago, the MTI acceptances were released for the 2021 MTI, which will hopefully have physical matches and possibly virtual judging at the end of July in Maryland. And so from what the Discord has gathered and other sources unofficially, it looks like pretty much all of the powerhouse teams in Ultimate Goal are going. I'm sure we'll have shows later talking about the teams, but what I'm more interested in talking about really quickly is, what do you guys think the strategy will look like at MTI? Do you guys want to touch on auto, teleop, endgame, any of those?
Sure. So I think it's really going to be a year for specialization. I know I've been talking to a few of the teams, and some of them have said that they're going to go directly for defense, which is going to be really interesting, especially with the new way that teams are ranked. It really doesn't depend on your wins. It's now just your base score. So that's going to be really interesting to see how a defense bot performs and who's actually going to end up being on top, since it's more just your raw score now.
I mean, I personally don't see the value at all in a defense bot for qualification matches. In elimination, 100%. There's huge value there. But in qualifications, just getting your ranking up, I don't really see the benefit in doing that.
I honestly really hope that they're able to make it in person. I think it'll be really interesting to see the dynamic between teams that have been competing in remote this entire time and have been very used to that home kind of setting, and now they have to transition to a in-person environment. And seeing that kind of change in environment will definitely be a very interesting element to the game.
Yeah.
Hey guys, just want to jump in a couple things for MTI. So Fun is going to be actually producing this event. So I will be flying out as well as Sean will be out there, and we're going to be adding a bit more to the event in person. So a few things, actually, something we're actually going to be doing the AV for the event too, because with it being at a different venue than prior, there were some changes to that. So we're going to be actually doing kind of a full production show there with the two fields and setup and stuff like that. So we've been working really hard to get things to the way that we can present it well, especially for those watching a webcast as well too. But we're very open to any suggestions that you might have of things you want to see. Our goal in the beginning is essentially as the teams run, the way that the matches are going to be cycled will be a little bit different, and I'll let MTI discuss that. But essentially, we're going to be doing a lot of filming in the morning during that, so we'll kind of just let the webcast run as is, but we'll be grabbing a bunch of interviews with the teams, like our Behind the Bots interviews. And then when we get the playoff time, the goal is to essentially have some great things we can have for filler. So expect replays, commentary with a board that we can draw on and kind of show some match strategy for it, as well as showing off some of those interviews as well. So we really want to try to step it up a bit for MTI. We're excited to partner with MTI to make that happen. But if you have suggestions for it, post it in chat or let us know in our Discord at discord.gg/first updates. Now, we'd love to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I think that's going to wrap up our headlines. Let's get into our next session. Let's discuss that.
Yep. So on the show tonight, we have... All right, so on the show tonight are Felipe and Owen from Team 8393, the giant Diencephalic BrainSTEM Robotics team. That's always a mouthful. This team has always been a powerhouse, both on the field and for awards, and they actually won the Inspire Award at the last Detroit World Championships 2 years ago for Robotics, I think. So congrats on that. This year, they have been consistently ranked within the top 3 in the world, putting up some just crazy scores of up to 611 points. In fact, they actually hold 8 out of the top 10 solo scores in the world, according to FTC stats. I could go on and on about them, but Felipe or Owen, to start us off, could you guys tell us a little bit more about your team? Where are you guys from? How many members do you have? How old have you guys been as a team?
Okay. Could you repeat the question?
Oh, I mean, while we're waiting for that, I think we can definitely talk about, their scores and things like that. I think one thing, I mean, obviously with BrainSTEM, their strategy compared to a lot of other teams is just, completely different. They're never, you never talk about, oh, BrainSTEM did 20 cycles or BrainSTEM did 15 cycles. It's always how many rings did BrainSTEM manage to do this time, right? I think that's just really incredible, how they pretty much, they're playing like a different ultimate goal, I think, right? Like every time I watch their videos, it's not like, oh, this is something my team plays as well. No, it's just something completely different. I think it's really, really impressive. And, I'm interested to see how it'll transfer over into MTI and stuff. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Asher, what do you think about their strategy, shooting, all of that stuff?
Definitely. I got to say, when I first, started off the season, I was thinking, how many cycles can we get? We're going in cycles of 3. That's going to be the routine. And then when I started seeing the crazy numbers that BrainSTEM was putting up, like almost double, like the 2nd and 3rd place teams, like it was just insane.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like, okay, I wonder how many cycles they're doing. Maybe the robot has like 12-to-1 ratio on their drivetrain or something. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it was just insane to see that they were basically playing a completely different game. So I think. I think BrainSTEM is back. So yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Tell us a little bit about your team's history or and how you guys kind of work.
Sure. So we started off as a first Lego League team, and I think it was smart move. I might be wrong on that. However, from there, just competed every year until enough members graduated out that we transitioned into FTC.
Maybe they're back.
Oh, can you hear us? Good? Okay, yeah. So we transitioned into FTC, at which point I think that was a block party. Is that right? So I think it was block party. And then from there, I ended up joining the team in Relic Recovery alongside Owen. And then we've been here for 4 years.
Yeah. We are also in Relic Recovery. Both of us got our start on.
While we wait for them, I think we can keep talking about this. Oh, is it just me who can't hear them?
Yeah. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
On Team 6931, which we formed in Relic Recovery, that's how actually we got our start with BrainSTEM. We were first on that sister team, and then we've been developing their skills ever since. So now they're not so much as a feeder team; they're more of a sister team now, and we're able to work alongside them. It's really helpful, and it's just really good to see how they've grown over the years.
For sure. Yep. They'll also be useful partners to see how our strategy is going to have to change for MTI. So that's going to be nice as well.
So, let's jump into your ultimate goal robot. It's, by far one of the highest scoring robots in the world. How did you come up with your robot design, right? Could you talk a little bit about why you went with a front side intake and how you got your shooter so quick and how your timeline looks like in the beginning of the season?
Yeah, sure. So our motto this year was to ABS, always be shooting. And so we'd really designed every single subsystem on the robot as well as the code such that we could accomplish that task. And so I guess the first thing to talk about is a vertical collector. We noticed that the best way to, or I guess the fastest way to collect and always be shooting would be to be able to grab those rings that are still upright coming from the chute. Yeah, from the return rack, exactly. So we have the collector that is able to sweep those in, as well as grab those that are lying flat on the ground. And then from there, we then have an active transfer that is always running throughout the match through these sets of rollers that carry it through sort of an elevator style system. However, it's always running with rollers instead of just having one platform move up and down. And that makes it such that, we don't have to collect 3 and then have those 3 go up and then fire those at once.
Yeah.
We can have each ring going up individually, which really has no downsides to it because it can accomplish the same things as, say, a moving platform. And then the last 2 subsystems, or I guess the 2 main subsystems for the always be shooting motto are the shooter itself and the turret. The turret is 2-dimensional, so it can rotate like this, side to side. And that is on a slew ring that we get sponsored from IGUS. And then we have 2 linear actuators that are able to raise the shooter up and down. So we can essentially hit the high goal from any place on the field. And that's done through a really nifty system in our code, which you can elaborate on.
Yeah, absolutely. So to accomplish our goal of always be shooting, we wanted to be able to always be tracking the goal so at any point we can just hit the fire button and a ring will go in the target. And to do that, I actually applied some of the knowledge that I learned in physics class this year about projectile motion to solve for the angle of elevation based on some known quantities like initial velocity, which we sort of estimated with testing. And just other known, how far the robot is, we can get from our odometry system in teleop. And then we do that to solve for the angle of elevation and the angle of rotation of the turret. So we can always be shooting at the goal using these calculations. And these are running constantly in teleop.
Yep. And then the last system is basically just our shooter. Nothing too special here. It's basically just a one-sided wheel shooter where you can fit 3 rings into a magazine and it fires those out pretty quickly through a servo-based flicker.
Sure.
That's just amazing, guys. I know my personal favorite about your robot was the intake. I think your entire robot is just super compact and well designed, but just about your intake and how it's able to vertically pick up rings. Do you mind talking a little bit about how you were able to do that or why you chose to do that?
Sure. So essentially, our intake is just made up of 2 parts. The first part is the system that knocks over the rings. And that you can kind of see up front here. I can rotate it. Essentially, it's just this bar right here with 2 rubber bands. As many people have, I guess, surmised on the FTC Discord. So it's just these 2 rubber bands which rotate very rapidly, and that propels these rings into the collection box. And then from there, the second system is just a system of rollers. These are just Lego belt rollers that are placed on each side, kind of in a funnel shape. And once the ring falls over, it can sweep those in or bring those rings in that are already knocked over.
I think that's one of the really important parts about the front intake, that we can grab both vertical rings and horizontal rings, because oftentimes the return rack is so variable that rings can be knocked over or hit one another. And it's really easy to be without turning around, it's really nice to be able to just go up and grab the rings in any orientation and go back and shoot them immediately.
Yeah, and do you guys have any issues with stacks or anything with your front intake? I know with your back intake, you guys have a blocker on it, but I guess I haven't really seen your front intake used for stacks.
So in the past, we did have some issues with stacks. However, we've iterated on it, so it shouldn't have those issues anymore. This is really just going to be quite useful for MTI mostly. We never see stacks too often in virtual competition. However, for MTI, that will definitely be more plausible to see. So that's definitely going to be a useful addition to this front collector.
Yeah,
and as you said, we have the back collector, which can collect stacks as well. It collects our 4-stack, or the starting 4-stack, or 1 or 0 rings that are there in auto.
And speaking of iteration, how has your bot evolved throughout the season? What's your time like for iteration? I've noticed that the core of your robot has stayed very similar or static throughout the entire season, which I think is a key for any great robot design.
Sure. So essentially at the beginning of the season, we just kind of map out, well, first we set our goal. And this year, as I said earlier, the goal was to always be shooting. And so we kind of split that up into different tasks that would be to be done, such as a vertical collector and an active transfer and a turret system. And then from there, we go about and we start the prototyping process. We're lucky enough to have a laser cutter that we can prototype very inexpensive parts out of wood and very quickly as well. And then from there, once those systems start to prove themselves, we cut them out of EGL. One thing that's really nice on our robot this year is that everything is extremely modular. We figured that because of the pandemic situation, it'd be very difficult to really see how these subsystems interact with one another. if we were to have a completely kind of like a one body robot where everything is interconnected. And it'd be very difficult to make additions to the robot, especially in the pandemic. So we decided to make everything very modular. You can't really see it right now, but I could take off the entire transfer or the entire collector or the turret and shooter system, all with about 4 or 5 screws each. And that makes it just so incredibly easy to iterate upon them. You know, all we have to do is take it out, make sure that whoever is making these changes to CAD is keeping in mind the constraints that we already have set in place. And then once they make those changes, they can quickly update it outside of the body of the robot and then just pop it right back in, put those 5 screws back on, and you're good to go.
Yeah, fantastic. Asher, you want to talk about COVID and stuff?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I know COVID has been really tough on a lot of teams, especially with, constructing the physical robot. So out of curiosity, how has COVID affected your build season and your kind of timeline this year? How have you guys been meeting and how have you been getting work done still at such an efficient rate?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so obviously the pandemic has hampered our ability to actually meet in person frequently twice a week, like we used to. So we've cut down official in-person meetings like of the entire team to try and use Zoom as much as possible for like our typical meeting where we discuss weekly goals, and this happens once a week on Sundays. And then to actually build the robot and program it and driver practice and all that good stuff, we try to use smaller sub teams, and so we limit the amount of people that are coming into our workspace at any one time. And just good communication is really key. So who's coming in when, and then also the modularity discussed before. So sometimes you don't even need to come in to work on it. You can come in, pick up your parts, and then go home and work on it.
Yeah, and besides having a simply amazing hardware aspect of the robot, your guys' software is also equally impressive. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about that? Oh, and are you using odometry for localization? What driver control enhancements do you have, or anything else you'd like to highlight really in your entire software
Absolutely.
side?
So yeah, we are using odometry. You can see it here. Sort of, there's one of our wheels. We're using 3 wheels currently. They're linearly sprung. They're on the wheels using the Rev 3 bore encoder, and there's obviously really help us track our position quite accurately. And to actually utilize the odometry wheels, like the inputs they get, we use Roadrunner, as a lot of teams do, and we have for the past 2 years, I believe. And this helps us accurately track our position, and more importantly for autonomous, we're able to map out paths lines and splines that are very accurate, and know exactly where we are on the field with an XY coordinate instead of just relative to some other point. It's really easy to specify with an XY coordinate by envisioning the field as a coordinate plane to map out our autonomous, and that's something that really makes our autonomous special. And I already mentioned the projectile motion, which has been a really new big part of our software this year to be able to track the goal. And then I'd say the final thing that's really important about our software is our driver enhancements. Our goal is always to automate driver controls, so you can do more with just one button press. But a really important thing is to keep tracking that goal throughout the match. You're inevitably going to battery decline, slight odometry drift. You're going to see some inaccuracy, and we have a system for our driver our secondary driver, to actually be able to adjust the target that it's shooting at, so they can make adjustments on the fly depending on how the rings are actually hitting. And then finally, they're also able to directly target the power shots with a single button.
Sure. I think another important point to mention is also that we use the IMU. We use a Novex2 IMU for the teleop. We discovered earlier in the year that using 3-wheel is very nice for that 30-second phase in autonomous. It's much more reliable than using the IMU. However, in a long-term span of, let's say, 2 minutes, where we're constantly strafing back and forth to get those rings that are coming at us, we found that the IMU was much more accurate at keeping our angle sustained than the 2 lateral odometry wheels. So we ended up using a 2-wheel and an IMU for the teleop portion of the game. And because of that, we barely drift, maybe 1 or 2 inches. And then, as Owen said, if we do end up drifting quite a large amount, we have a second driver who can just make quick adjustments towards the high goal once they see that we're starting to get off.
So that Navex V2, it's about $150 from AndyMark, right? Somewhere around there.
Yeah. So it's actually, I think, compatible with FRC. I think it's really meant to be used in FRC. We mistakenly bought it. However, it does work for FTC, so we ended up adjusting for that. I would say that the Navex Micro, if anyone in FTC were interested in getting it, would be the Navex Micro, would be the IMU that you're looking for.
Awesome.
Awesome. So speaking more non-technical, with regards to outreach, how have you guys kind of adjusted your outreach and your judging as a result of this remote kind of format? What type of outreach did you do this past year? And do you have any tips for other teams regarding portfolios or engineering notebooks in this virtual kind of format?
So because of the pandemic, we've kind of shifted everything more virtual. For example, we do a lot of refereeing and judging at our local First Lego League events. And so we've decided to move those to Zoom, kind of like how we're talking right now. We just have the teams present, and then we can just talk to them over Zoom. Similarly, we also teach classes at some of our local STEM institutions. And so we've moved those virtually as well, so we can teach through Zoom and Skype and other softwares instead of actually going in person. So that's pretty much been the core of our outreach. It's been a little bit more difficult, so we've kind of just relied on some of our more basic outreach experiences this year, as opposed to what we've done in years past.
Sure. And, as you guys are obviously a very, very experienced team in the sense of awards, winning the Detroit World Inspire and Rover Ruckus. So do you have any tips for teams regards to like the interview or pit judging or, things like that?
I'd say just practice, especially with the I say new because I've been in FTC for a couple of years. Well, limitations to 5 minutes instead of 10 minutes for your presentation really helps us to figure out what we're all going to say, like who's going to say what, and bring up the important points. And then practice it to make sure you're under that 5 minutes and you're saying what you need to say and it comes across well. And then also think about the kind of things that you've heard in past interviews. If you've had a couple of tournaments before, like think about the kind of questions they'd ask, because that's even more of it. Like you practice a presentation a lot, but for the majority of the time they're asking you questions and you have to be able to think on the fly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's always that one staple question that I know we get a ton. For example, like, let's see, is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about your robot? And it's questions like that we really just practice beforehand. We list off exactly all the parts of the robot that we find innovative, what we think is design worthy, what we think we could highlight from a motivate standpoint and from a connect standpoint. And if we fail, or if they fail to, if we really don't mention that during our interview, we certainly bring it up then. And it's just a combination of really mapping those things out before the interview that really helps us out during it.
And before we get into our audience questions, I guess the last thing we want to talk about is with the Pennsylvania State Championship coming up next weekend, what are your plans for that competition? Are you working on any special upgrades to your robot, software, and also are you guys going to be making any huge changes for MTI this year?
So we have something in the works for Pennsylvania State Championship. However, for MTI, we are going to just make some slight modifications, work on our front collector, just make sure it's extremely just perfect with rings that are bouncing out of the return rack rather than just rolling towards us on the field. I know that there's some teams like Black Forest, really awesome robot. They have those awesome flappers at the front that really just bring in any ring, no matter how it's oriented. So we'll be looking into systems that can do something like that for sure. Then,
you have something else?
Yeah, sure. So I think the other thing that we'll look at for sure is drivetrain. Talking to teams that are going to be attending MTI, a lot of them say that they're going to be taking a defensive aspect, or defense is going to be way more brutal, especially as 4 teams compete for only 2 return racks at a time.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely need to have a drivetrain that's more capable of shoving and pushing, I guess is the way to say it, but also just more resilient against hits if we end up being shoved from the side. A Mecanum drivetrain won't exactly stop that as well as, say, a 6-wheel drive could.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that we're always thinking about is autonomous coordination, because we've been virtual the whole year. We've been running with one robot. And when we go to MTI, we're going to actually have a partner, I believe, and we're going to have to figure out how to coordinate auto pass, because just like Skystone, this is another year where it's really hard to coordinate auto, because it's not like Relic Recovery or Rover Ruckus where you have a very sort of specific area that you're working in.
Yeah, I think one thing that should help with that a lot, I could be wrong, but I believe at some point MTI did say that they were going to release like the team list or like the groups like a week or two early, so we could figure out autos and strategies and things like that. So I'm definitely looking forward to that week.
We'll probably actually have a show on it, I'm guessing.
Okay, fantastic.
Quick question for you guys, actually. I know your robot's huge and super compact. You've used up every single square inch of that 18 by 18 by 18 inch limit. So I was just wondering, how much does your robot weigh?
Ooh, never actually done a specific test for that. Just because, there's no weight limitation this year. But if I had to guess, I think it would be around 40, 45 pounds.
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty heavy robot.
Yeah, we really do aim to make every subsystem as small as possible. However, just because of the nature of this game, we did end up using a lot of space. And with that comes a lot of use of FR4, which is our main design component or our main structural component. And that's all the black stuff that you see on the robot. For example, the transfer panels and the drivetrain panels are all made of FR4. And that's actually a pretty heavy material compared to some other materials that you can use.
Cool.
Got it. And before we hop into our audience questions, is there anything you guys want to plug or any social medias or anything? Where can teams contact you if they have any other questions?
Well, I think most of us are on the FTC Discord, so you can reference us there. We also have a YouTube page that you can visit. We post some of our match videos up there as well.
Okay,
Awesome.
So our first audience question is from Seb9527 and Aluija7. Are you guys working on a bounce back auto to try and get more points in auto?
Yeah, we're definitely looking to continuously iterate our auto. We've obviously been looking at what all these other teams are doing. We saw the video at the beginning of this session. We definitely know that that's the way that you need to get more points. Our current auto is, or our auto from the last competition, I should say, is shot in the high goal specifically just for simplicity's sake. But I think the next step to just getting more points consistently, especially with the starter stack going from 0 to 4 rings, you need to be able to hit those power shots and attempt to at least get the rings back. It's definitely a challenge, especially for in person, but a challenge that I think we're up to.
For sure.
Awesome. And Adi from FTC team 18275 was asking, what did your design process look like this year as opposed to normal years?
Sure. So this year, as I talked about earlier, we really emphasized more modularity with everything. We just wanted to make it so everyone or anyone who's working on a specific subsystem could just take that off and iterate upon it, knowing the exact constraints that they have. And that was really the biggest change, was just laying out, okay, you have exactly this much space to work with. And if every single part that you're going to need for the subsystem to function has to go in here, it cannot be connected to some other subsystem, or it should not be. And that would make it such that we can pull it out and iterate upon it outside of the robot pretty quickly.
Okay, and the Poofy Jacket from 254, the FRC team, has a couple questions. Who chooses the songs for your videos? Which song was your favorite so far? And I think the most difficult question tonight, what is your favorite color for a robot?
Okay, so who chooses the songs for our videos? Our mentor, Mr. Gordon Walton, really helps create the videos and work them in iMovie and upload them to YouTube. And he generally picks the songs, but in recent videos, we've had our own input. My input personally was on Crazy Train. I believe it was the 572 video. And that's definitely my favorite. I picked the song, and that's just one of my favorite songs.
I like Crazy Train. Yeah.
Good pick.
And from his second, or I guess his third question, I don't know. I mean, the color of our robot, really changes from year to year. So it's hard to pick.
Okay.
Yeah. So Hari Shankar from team 18459 was asking, what is your strategy for getting more and more cycles done in teleop, already having accomplished the crazy amount of cycles that you have already? Do you think that you'll surpass Wolfpack Machina's 646-point unofficial world record?
Sure. So we really just look to make everything as perfect as possible. I guess I should say, cutting down as much as possible on the amount it takes for a subsystem to do its job. If we can reduce how much it takes to collect by, say, a quarter of a second, that's huge. It's a quarter of a second for 90 some rings, right?
Mhm.
And so that adds up in the end. And so we really just try and optimize every single subsystem to its peak performance. And that's going to include the front collector, the transfer, as many people have noted, as well as our shooting accuracy and the shooting speed, the rate at which we can shoot 3 rings. And then for the second question, so we've definitely gotten higher scores than that already. However, that's really just practice. Practice doesn't really count in my perspective, but that's not to put down Wolfpack. I mean, their robot is just fantastic, really awesome stuff. But where it really counts is getting those 6 runs or really nailing it in those 5 or 6 runs that you have during a competition.
Yeah, definitely. And so, did you guys take HUD 13 from the Twitch chat did you guys take any inspiration from other teams during this season, or I want to add, or any other teams from past seasons, FTC, FRC, or anything else?
Sure. So I think one team that we really took inspiration from this year was Data Force. They were really awesome last year, and then I think Skystone.
Ashray, can you hear them, or is it just me?
No, I can't hear them either.
Okay.
Oops. Yeah, I think they were talking about Data Force's robot from Skystone.
Yeah.
And just for some context, Data Force had an amazing turret robot during Skystone where they could pick up the stone and rotate it in really any way. And it was amazing how they were able to make that work with a 6-wheel drive robot too.
Yeah.
Can you hear us now?
Yep. You're good.
Yep. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, we have close ties with Data Force. We really talked to them about how they did their turret, make it as optimal as possible. And so that was a big inspiration for us for when we decided to go with our turret.
Awesome.
Yep. And then we have a question from PPTTV Simp, who's asking, is it harder to CAD modular components? And he has a follow-up question, but I guess I'll get to that right after.
I don't know. For me, it really wasn't, because I knew exactly what constraints I had and where I had to, kind of lift stuff up. So it was maybe an extra hour or so just making sure that those were, I met those constraints. And really, I just kind of, just for me personally, I just CAD'd a box that was see-through so that I know I would always be within those bounds. So it really wasn't a big deal. However, for other subsystems such as the transfer that really are just huge, and they are so incredibly close to, interfering with other subsystems, but they don't. That would definitely be more difficult. You really have to spend some more time and look at those after other subsystems have been developed.
Really quickly, just a personal question from myself. I mean, what CAD software did you use, and how exactly did you collaborate using it?
Sure. So we use Autodesk Fusion 360, which has its own cloud-based network. Yes, exactly. So that has its own cloud-based network, which is really nice. It just allows everyone and anyone to work on a design and then save it so that everyone can see it and use it.
Got it.
Sure.
And PPTTV Sim's second question was, are the 8393 hoodies for sale?
Ooh, not for sale, I don't think. Unfortunately not. But I don't know. Maybe we'll look into that for MTI. However, I don't think so.
Okay.
Put them on sale.
So 87083 and BenCont1232 asked, what is your robot's name this year?
Oh, I haven't considered that.
It's a very important question.
I think we actually did give it a name.
No, I don't have a name for it. So I took inspiration. Actually, I came up with this when I was naming the config file. I was just like, BrainSTEM robot that seems sort of bland. I sort of thought about like the turret and how it just auto aims, and I named it M1 Abrams after the tank.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Our next question is from Jason E2212 and IObsessing. These names are awesome. And they're asking, does the rolling ring intake vector the rings? And just more info on how the double-sided intake works.
Sure. I mean, so the ring itself, whenever it goes into the collector, essentially it's propelled into it by the front spindle, which is made up of the 2 rubber bands, as we talked about earlier. And then when it reaches the collection box, it gets knocked over and swept in by the two horizontal Lego belts, as we talked about. That's, I think, as willing as I am to go into depth on that subsystem.
Okay. And so Infinite Awesomeness Studio says, what is your total wheel count on the robot?
Oh, did you say wheel count?
Yeah, wheel count.
So we have the 4 mecanums and then the 3 odometry wheels, and then we have the 1 wheel for the shooter. And then we get into the very particular wheels. We have 1 on our vertical collector, which we have to reduce jams. I don't know if you really count these belts as wheels, and there's also some rollers on our transfer, which again, I'm not sure if they count as wheels, but I would stick with 8, maybe 9.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, our next question is from the Real Simpleton, and they're asking, how do you guys knock down the rings? So I guess another question about the intake.
So, as I said earlier, I'm not trying to go too specific. That's one of the areas we're trying to maybe limit a little bit what we're talking about. But I'll just repeat really what I said earlier, which is there's the front spindle, which propels it into the collection box. And then from there, once rings are knocked over, it is grabbed by 2 sets of rolling Lego belt. We'll go into vertical ring collection probably later in the season for sure.
Okay. And so Anti-CZ-Com says, do you guys have any issues with the rev encoders returning inconsistent counts?
So we did early in the season. However, with some tuning and experimentation, we really don't anymore. I think one of the keys for us was realizing that they really, I guess the 2 odometry wheels that calculate your heading, they pretty much have to be plugged into the mechanical ports on a rev hub. Those just seem, the hardware ports on a rev hub. And what that allowed them to do is they returned more uniform values between the 2, which caused less drift, right? Because the angle, or I guess the heading, was more accurate. But we really haven't seen much disparity between how much the wheel thinks it's turned and how much the robot has moved.
Yeah, the hardware or software port was really the thing that helped us get that level of accuracy that we're looking for.
Cool.
Got it. So Peter from team 10298 Brainstorms was asking, how many servos are on your robot and what are they used for?
Ooh, not that many actually. I think, well, let's see, let me count them. We have 4 on this, and then maybe 3 on this side. So I think 7, but then 2 of those, one of those is a blink-in, right, which splits into these.
Yeah.
So the lights on a robot, that's 1. So I think there's only 6 servos. And so 2 of them come from the tilting, the linear actuators. One of them comes from the flicker on the shooter itself.
3 come from the lovable mechanism, and 1 from the servo that rotates the camera.
So there's actually 7.
No. These run on the same port. The
Right,
2
okay.
linear actuators that tilt our shooter up and down.
There we go. So we have 7 total servos.
Got it.
Awesome. And I guess Infinite Awesomeness Studio has one more question. How do you iterate? Do you do it all in CAD and build the bot, or do you build and iterate different individual systems with like free building and things like that?
So we don't do much free building. It's mostly all in CAD.
Okay.
And if the season, we just kind of took a rev plate and bent it down a little bit to match exactly what we needed for that.
Oh, I have one question about the rev stuff. So I noticed you guys are using a lot of the core hex motors. So, what influenced your decision to go with that build system? Or I guess it's not really a build system, but just those motors, instead of the Andy Mark or Go Build a motor.
Sure. So we use the HD hex, and we like using these because it gives us access to the rev cartridges for the ultraplanetaries. And those are just so handy, having the 2, 3, and 4 to 1 options. They're fantastic. Or sorry, not 2, 3, 4. I think it's 3, 4, 5 is just fantastic. They give you a whole range of gear, I guess, drivetrain combinations or shooter combinations or whatever you need, whatever gearing combination you need for whatever task, really. And it's pretty great. We could also use we've experimented with the Gabilda motors as well. However, we just gravitated, I guess, or moved towards the rev motors just because of the Ultra Hex or the Ultra Planetaries. They're really nice.
Yep. And we had another question from Samson Legion and Jason E2212. And they're asking about your turret shooter. So can you talk a little bit more about your turret shooter and how did you make it accurate? Also, did you face any backlash on your turret?
Sure. So at the beginning of the season, we did face a lot of backlash on the turret, right? Whenever it's shot, it would have that recoil motion to it. However, to fix that, the two things that we did, the first one was to stiffen up all the joints or possible places of movement. Anywhere where there could be a little bit of a shake or some type of motion due to the firing of a ring, we really clamped down on that. And I think the main object that helped assuage our issues there was the slew bearing from Aegis. That really has no extra motion to it other than the motion required for that to rotate. And then the other thing that we did was just make everything a lot heavier. You know, if the more mass you have, the less it's translated into acceleration. So we added double layers of EGL in a lot of places, which is FR4, I should say that. So double layers of FR4, and then just some, I guess, some dead weights in the back.
Oh yeah, and speaking of accuracy of the turret in terms of a programming sense, we control the turret's motion in a rotation fashion with encoder counts. And to actually get an accurate range of encoders, because we need to know precisely what angle to turn at, we use limit switches at the beginning of both autonomous and teleop, so the turret can turn to a specific place, hit the limit switch, and sort of zero itself almost. And that really helps us know exactly where we are on an encoder basis. And then we've done experimentation to translate that into actual degrees.
And one question I have, so you guys are obviously using a motor for your turret then. Are you powering it with, gears, chain, belt? What are you using to actually move the turret around?
We have a large ring gear that we use, and that's just powered by a rev motor and an HD hex motor.
Cool.
All right. So then we had a question from Samson Legion, and they're asking, how do you check to see if the shooting angle is correct? Did you have to iterate through it many times to eventually find the correct angle? I'm assuming they're asking about the vertical angle.
Yeah, so I guess at the beginning of the season, I think we just gave it as much range as possible. And we knew that I think within the angles of 20, I think it was the beginning of the season, all the way up to like 35, which is just, a pretty substantial range of movement, that at some speed we would be able to hit the target. And so we empirically tuned exactly what that speed would need to be once we set it. I think we set it exactly to the mid angle so that we could have some room to move up and move down need be. And then we empirically tuned exactly what value the speed of that shooter wheel needed to be, such that rings would hit accurately and within the 16-foot limit into the high goal.
Got it.
Awesome. I think we've had a ton of very fantastic questions, but now it's time to switch over to the fun Kahoot for tonight. So Tyler, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, as we load that in, by the way. If you haven't played before, it's just going to be 5 trivia questions through. By the way, host, I'm just going to put the pin in our chat real quick before everybody else joins, so you have that. $20 gift card to the winner. You can choose it to a supplier of your choice. So any of the suppliers out there that supply FTC or FRC, if you really want that components, you'll get a $20 gift card towards that. So you just gotta let me know what you want after, or shoot me a message, whoever wins. And everybody who's on air is allowed to play, but they can't win. Just a heads up. So but we definitely encourage you to play as well. So I'm gonna bring that over on screen here, and that's going to be go to kahoot.it, and the game pin is on screen, 7762791. You can join at any time. So we're going to let that go for just a moment. By the way, I just want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Stryker, for supporting our show and keeping things going. If you are getting near the point of graduation and you're looking for an internship or a co-op, or if you're in college and looking for that co-op or career, head on over to careers.stryker.com. To find out more. Stryker's a leading medical manufacturer. They make some of the if you go to hospital, you'll see their stuff everywhere. Really cool stuff on that. So big shout out to Stryker for supporting fun, especially in the pandemic times. They're really keeping us afloat, so I really do appreciate that. So show them some love at careers.stryker.com. All right, we'll let this populate for just another minute, and then we're going to get going through this. Is there Abbas and Oscar? Are you both playing as well too?
I'm on.
I think Oscar's also in.
Cool,
yeah.
cool.
And Owen and Felipe, are you guys joining?
Yeah, we
yeah.
are in.
This is under
Okay,
BrainSTEM,
okay.
I think, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Sweet.
okay, I see. And before we start the Kahoot, is there anything else you guys would like to plug? About your team or anything?
Can I just say? I'll just say hi to Hudson and Sid. I promise I'd say hi to them.
Awesome.
Yeah, why not? All right, we're going to get
Awesome.
started. If you're late, you can join in afterwards. This was kind of your final warning to get in, so let's go ahead and start. Do you guys want me to narrate, or Abbas or Ashray, do you want to do it?
Yeah, I can do it.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, we'll take it. Let's do this.
Okay. So our first question is, what were the two ranking metrics called in Rescue? I don't think any of us were around for this. BrainSTEM.
Rescue is my-
around?
Rescue is my first season.
I think
Oh,
Sean made
wow,
this, by
okay.
the way, so if it's really tough, you can blame him.
Oh, dang. Hey, I'm tied to the boss.
Well, I got it wrong, so.
Yeah. I'm in 14th, tied to the boss. That's awesome.
Okay, so the answer was qualification points and ranking points.
Ooh, congrats to Amon for getting in first place with 880 points. Good
And it
stuff.
looks like BrainSTEM also got it right. So let's go on to the next one.
All right.
So how many teams attended each World Championship before they were expanded in 2019?
It was FTC.
The answer choices are, for FTC. So the answer choices are 102, 160, 128, or 144.
I think I got this one wrong. Oh, dang.
Okay, so it looks like the right answer was 128. I think now it's probably around, well, actually now it's nothing, but I guess we'll see what it'll be in the future.
Hey, look, BrainSTEM's in first.
BrainSTEM's in first place.
Nice.
Who is the director of FTC programs? And he's definitely been on, I think I got this correct. He's definitely been on a lot of the FTC YouTube videos, talking about the Rev Driver Station and things like that. So I think you guys should be able to get this one.
I think a tougher question would be, who's the, I'm going to ask this afterwards, who's the current interim president of FIRST? We'll see if any of you know.
Okay.
Yeah. I know I think Ken Johnson was pretty recent. I think the last like two or 3 years, I believe.
Oh, at least.
I might be wrong. Yeah. So yeah, congrats to those of you that got it right.
Does anybody know in here who the current interim first president is?
I know we said there was a new one on the last show, and I don't remember who it is.
Yeah.
Chat, we'll
Congrats
see.
to-
We'll see if you know, chat.
Yeah, congrats to P Young for being in first place with 2,400 points. It looks like
Brooks
BrainSTEM's
is also
completely
playing.
fallen off. Oh yeah, Brooks is also on.
Yeah.
Ooh, Abbas, you're in the top 5.
Yeah, I'm 5th, so we'll see.
Good stuff. What was the game played by FTC teams while FRC teams were stacking trash in Recycle Rush? So during Recycle Rush, what was the FTC game? Ooh,
Yeah,
that was
man,
a lot.
Ishan's
Savage
really
doesn't even put the
playing
year.
tough
How
with these
savage.
questions.
Sean.
Yeah.
I promise you the
Evil.
FTC game was better than the FRC game.
Okay,
dang,
looks like our
Cascade
answer was Cascade Effect. Only 8 people got that one right, so that was a pretty tough one.
Can
Let's see
we-
who's in first
Yeah.
place
Can
now.
we point out a really weird irony that it's Cascade Effect and the scores are cascading all the way down?
That's
really-
actually funny.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Brooks is in first.
Okay, awesome. And
Fun host-
Rocco, shout out to Rocco. He's a freshman in our robotics club in Palm Harbor, so looks like he knows his stuff.
You're training your freshmen well.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, on to our last question.
Ooh, double points.
Double points.
In Cascade Effect, which of the following was used during the randomization of Autonomous? Randomization. Cascade Effect.
Okay.
Ooh.
This is a tough one.
So the answer choices are the light up Andy Mark beacons, vision targets, IR beacons, or that there was no randomization. Oh, dang.
Wow. Okay, 7 people got this one right. IR beacons was the correct answer, so let's see who our winner is.
Yep. All
Okay.
right. In third place, we have Andu with 5 out of 5 points, perfect score. In second place, we have Extra Battery with 4 out of 5 points. And in first place, we have HUD with 4 out of 4 points. 4 out of 5 points.
Oh, Rip
correctly.
Brooks, by the way.
Yeah. Rip Brooks and Rocket.
F for Brooks
I
in the
guess
chat.
Last question wasn't nice to them.
Yeah. So, HUD, congratulations. Please shoot me a message either here on Twitch or on Discord, and we'll get you hooked up with that $20 gift card. Congratulations.
It's also funny that the third place person got 5 out of 5 correct, but then the second and first place person had only 4 out of 5.
Somebody
I
has
guess that
potato
timing
internet.
really matters.
Yep, gotta answer fast.
Yeah. Okay, so I think it's time to wrap up the show. Thank you everybody today for all of your follows and subscriptions. Don't forget that you can subscribe for free if you or your parents have Amazon Prime. I know I've been using mine. We hope you enjoyed this episode of FTC Recap with BrainSTEM. And if you want to stay connected with what First Updates Now FTC is doing, please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all with the handle @FunFTC, and join our Discord through the link in the chat.
Yep, and thanks for the amazing questions once again. If you have any follow-up questions, be sure to check out BrainSTEM through their YouTube channel or through our Discord @FunFTC or through the FTC Discord in general. And on behalf of myself, Abbas, and our producer Tyler, working behind the scenes, I would like to thank you all for tuning in. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
We would like to thank our friends at Stryker for supporting this video. Stryker is looking for current and future FIRST alumni to join their internship program, and FIRST mentors who are looking for a great career with a company who actually supports their FIRST journey. Go to careers.stryker.com to learn more. You can also directly support Fun by joining Fun Nation. Click the join button, and just for a few bucks a month, you'll unlock special perks and directly support us so we can keep making great content. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date on our new videos. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. Watch our live shows at twitch.tv/firstupdatesnow. Join our Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow. And check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.